Alright, so this is just going to be a brief tutorial on Bitpaper, which is one of the platforms that we're planning to use for tutoring during this time of remote learning. When it's time for your tutoring session, your tutor will likely have given you a Google Calendar invite, and that may have a link to a Bitpaper page in it, but whether or not that event exists, your tutor should send you an email that has a link, and it should look something like this. So it's bitpaper.io. You can just click on that link, and you should see there are some tips and a short video that you can look at there if you need to. You can close that, and you should see just this blank white space with a few buttons around the edges and a few tabs if your tutor has opened multiple workspaces. Now you should see your tutor's cursor moving around on the page. So that's an indication that they are there. When the time comes, they will go ahead and start a call. So that's going to allow you to video chat with your tutor. So see here it says other people are in a call. So you can join the call. Can enable video.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello, hello.
Hello, hello. So that's the time when you can say goofy things to your tutor. So
of course, you don't have to use video. If you're uncomfortable with that, you can just enable your microphone.
Yep. So to enable or disable video, you can just click the little camera icon here. Now, once the chat is open, you can drag your picture and the tutor's picture anywhere on the screen you want to. And you can use the little gray box to make it as big or small as you want to. And you could even take it out to the full screen if you want to. You'll notice at the bottom here, there's a microphone button, a camera button, and a laptop button. And that's particularly useful if you want to share your screen. So if there's a piece of homework that you're working on that you want your tutor to see, or something of that nature, you can just click here. You can share your entire screen, you can share a particular window, or you can share a particular tab in your browser. So for instance, if I share this Schoology tab, that can show my tutor what I'm looking at in Schoology. If we go back to Bitpaper, you can see that that is taking the place of my video feed. And you can drag that wherever you want and make it as big or small as you want. Now, let's take a look at the features of this blank area here, the whiteboard. So first, I'm going to end this call.
Bye.
Bye. You can hang up in the phone menu right here. So just click hang up and that ends the call. You can use this whiteboard space while you are talking with your tutor to discuss problems, to mark up documents. You can use it to show each other just anything that you're working on. So the most basic tool here is the pen tool. And that's what I'm using right now. So I can just draw anything that I want. It's pretty easy to draw simple shapes. Or you can click the ruler here, and that allows you to draw straight lines. And you can see it also gives you a bearing for those lines. So you can draw very precise geometric shapes using that straight line tool. Another way to draw shapes is using the shape tool over here. So by default, it's an arrow. So you can use that as a vector if you're in physics or algebra 2, or you can just use it to point to things like, here's a circle. There, I pointed to it. But if you click the little refresh symbol here, you can get into this whole library of shapes. So if you wanted to draw a more precise triangle than the one that I drew over here, you could draw a right triangle like that. Or you could draw a square. So that can be useful, particularly for geometry. Now let's look at, once we've got some stuff on the whiteboard, we can use the select tool to mess with it. So if I click there, I can take this triangle and move it around. I can grab it, move it over here, I can scale it, I can rotate it, I can do all kinds of things to it. And if I hit my delete key, it goes away. And that's a really good way. If you drag and select a large area, you can get rid of work you don't need anymore. So if you're working on one thing and then you need to move on, you can just select everything you've done, hit delete, and get rid of it. Now, when you're in the pen tool, you can use this button right here to bring up the settings. So you can change colors, and you can slide this to change the size of your pen. Now this changes the size of your eraser tool, which is basically just a white pen. So if you go to the eraser, which is right here, you can just basically draw over what you've already done in white. So if I wanted to make this into a dashed line, I could cut out pieces of it by drawing over it in white. So now I'll select all of this and delete it. Now, one thing that it's hard to do if you're just using a laptop trackpad or a mouse is to write on here. So for instance, if I want to write hello, I can do it, but it takes a while. It takes me like 10 seconds just to write 5 letters. So that's where this text tool comes in handy. So if you add text, you can click anywhere and just really quickly type hello. So for instance, if I had a rectangle and I wanted to indicate how long the sides are, I could just very quickly say, this is 5, this is 12. So you don't necessarily need to bother with writing using the pen tool because you can type very easily using the text tool. But we'll also get into a little bit later some ways that you can make that easier on yourself if you have the technology. So another option that we can use that's especially helpful for algebra is changing the background. So that's this little grid looking button over here. Now we can change the background color. That's not terribly useful. But what is useful is these sliders that say horizontal spacing and vertical spacing, you can use to create lines on your page. So the smaller the spacing, the tighter the lines are. So this gives you horizontal lines, and this gives you vertical lines. So if you set them to be the same, it turns your whole workspace into graph paper, which can be very useful. Now, let's look at a few other settings. If you have a lot of stuff on one page that you want to save, but you need to move on to something else, you can just click over here to just create a new page and start from scratch. So I'm going to turn off the grid on this page, so we just have a totally blank workspace. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to that Schoology page that I had open, and I'm going to take a screenshot of this slide here. So on a Mac, that's Command-Shift-4, and on Windows, you can just use the snipping tool. If I do that, now I have a picture of that slide that I can put on my desktop, and then I can just grab that file and drop it straight into Bitpaper. And you can do this with pictures, like I can drop this picture of my dog, and once things are in there, you can use the select tool to grab them, move them around, and you can use the pen tool or any other tool to mark up whatever it is that you're looking at. So for instance, if you were in this Spanish class and you wanted to underline words that you didn't know to talk about with your tutor, you could circle things, you could put a little arrow, and then write what you might put there. So you can use Bitpaper to bring in files from elsewhere on your computer and talk about them with your tutor. Mark them up, do whatever you need to do with them. And now I'm going to talk for just a moment about how to interact with Bitpaper. It is entirely all right and good to just do it with your laptop the way I've been doing it this whole time. Using a mouse makes it easier to draw. And also, if your family has a tablet computer that you can use the same link to connect to Bitpaper through the tablet, and then use a stylus to use that as your drawing surface, which can make the whole experience a lot smoother by giving you the ability to, for instance, write directly with the pen tool without having to switch over to typing. But as I said, that is totally optional, and you should be able to do everything you need to do just using your laptop's trackpad or a mouse. Hopefully this has been helpful, and I hope your tutoring sessions go well.